Anatoly Moskvin, a renowned historian admired by many, shocked the world when the horrifying truth about his doll collection was exposed. After Anatoly Moskvin's horrific actions were discovered in 2011, he was put on trial. However, Moskvin was never sentenced to prison as he was diagnosed with a mental illness, specifically schizophrenia. Instead, he was committed to compulsory psychiatric treatment at a medical facility. Moskvin has been there since his arrest and continues to receive treatment for his condition. Despite having committed horrifying actions, Moskvin never expressed any remorse and even claimed that he was doing a good deed by giving a new life to the deceased girls. The story began in 2011 when police unexpectedly discovered 29 female bodies, aged between 3 and 25, in his apartment. Anatoly, with his extensive knowledge of history and culture, exploited his expertise to carry out terrifying actions. He had excavated 150 graves, taking away the bodies of children and related items. He then transformed these bodies into dolls, dressing them in beautiful clothes, meticulously applying makeup and decorating them. These dolls were considered by him as friends and family, living with him in his dark, eerie apartment. In May 2012, Anatoly Moskvin was brought to court in Nizhny Novgorod with 44 charges of desecration of graves and dead bodies. However, after careful examination, the judge concluded that Anatoly was not criminally responsible due to his mental incapacity. He was sent to a mental hospital for treatment instead of prison. Anatoly Moskvin's story caused a major shock in the community, raising many questions about ethics, psychology, and law. The dolls made from corpses that he created became a gruesome testament to the intertwining of talent and madness. People will forever remember the image of the silent, cold dolls, each carrying their own painful and mysterious stories. Anatoly Moskvin was born and raised in a normal family in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. From a young age, Anatoly demonstrated superior intelligence compared to his peers. He was passionate about learning, especially history and languages. Thick books, ancient maps, and historical stories always fascinated young Anatoly, keeping him engrossed. However, behind the facade of a smart and talented boy, Anatoly harbored mysterious and incomprehensible things. He was intrigued by horror stories, the mysteries and secrets of the supernatural world. The boy often wandered in cemeteries, studying ancient graves, listening to stories about restless spirits. A notable event occurred when Anatoly was just 12 years old. Once, while strolling in a cemetery near his home, he was bullied by a group of friends and locked in an old tomb. The extreme fear and loneliness in the dark forever changed the boy. Instead of fear, Anatoly began to feel a strange connection with the spirits in the cemetery. This event seemed to awaken in him a strange and dark fascination with death. Entering adolescence, Anatoly continued to pursue his academic career with excellence. He graduated from university with honors and became a respected historian. Anatoly's lectures were always captivating, full of knowledge and deep understanding of history and culture. However, behind these successes, the dark fascination with death always existed in him. Anatoly began to delve deeper into funeral rituals, customs related to death, and even mummification methods. He spent a lot of time in cemeteries, not just for research, but also to conduct bizarre experiments. These actions became increasingly secretive and creepy, But no one could suspect that behind the polished exterior and intelligence of the renowned historian was a person with unprecedented horrifying actions. Anatoly Moskvin, now a renowned historian, still harbored a dark fascination with death. His research on funeral rituals and customs related to death did not stop at theory, but began to move into practice. And then, a fateful day marked a horrifying turning point in his life. On a cold night, Anatoly decided to carry out an action he had long planned. He prepared meticulously, bringing the necessary tools, and silently entered a desolate cemetery on the outskirts of Nizhny Novgorod. He chose the tomb of a girl named Maria, who died at just 10 years old. Maria was a pretty little girl with a bright smile and radiant eyes, but now she was just a name on a cold tombstone. Anatoly started his work meticulously and carefully. He dug up the grave, scraping away layers of soil until Maria's coffin appeared before his eyes. He opened the coffin lid and saw the girl's body, still fairly intact due to the dry soil conditions. He carefully lifted the body, wrapped it up, and brought it back to his apartment. At the apartment, Anatoly began his bizarre rituals. He dressed Maria's body in new clothes, applied makeup to her face, and even attached a wig. He turned Maria into a lifelike doll, placing her on a chair as if she was still alive. Anatoly began to converse with Maria, treating her like a member of his family. These actions were not only madness, but also represented Anatoly's extreme loneliness. He had no friends, no family, and the dolls made from corpses became his only companions. Maria, the first victim, opened a new haunting chapter in Anatoly Moskvin's life. He did not stop there, but continued to search for other victims to add to his bizarre doll collection, gradually sinking deeper into the endless darkness of madness and crime. After transforming Maria's body into a lifelike doll, Anatoly Moskvin felt a strange satisfaction. But at the same time, he started to feel a sense of lack with only Maria in the apartment. His dark obsession didn't stop, but continued to push him to seek more friends. On a cold winter night, Anatoly again prepared for a trip to the cemetery. This time, he chose a different cemetery located on the eastern side of the city. He targeted the tomb of a girl named Elena, who died at just 8 years old due to illness. Elena, with her large, round eyes and shiny blonde hair, was once the hope of her family before her life was tragically cut short. Anatoly continued with his familiar process. He dug up Elena's grave, carefully opened the coffin, and took the girl's body. Back at the apartment, he began the process of turning Elena's body into a doll. He dressed her in beautiful clothes, applied makeup to her face, and placed her next to Maria. Elena, now part of Anatoly's horrifying collection, was treated as a new friend. Anatoly spent a lot of time talking to the dolls, telling them about historical stories and his dreams. In his twisted mind, these dolls were not just corpses, but close friends, the children he never had. The presence of Elena made Anatoly's apartment even darker and creepier, but for him, it was a bizarre comfort, a way for him to feel less lonely in his world. The dolls made from corpses were not only the product of madness, but also a testament to the extreme loneliness and obsession with death that Anatoly could not escape. The second victim, Elena, marked a further step in Anatoly Moskvin's path of crime. The story of the dolls made from corpses became increasingly horrifying as Anatoly couldn't stop and continued to seek new victims to add to his collection. Anatoly Moskvin's life was becoming increasingly bizarre and frightening. The dolls made from the corpses of Maria and Elena were treated as family members, always present in his dark and cold apartment. But Anatoly's dark obsession didn't stop there. He continued to seek more victims to enrich his horrifying collection. One day, while wandering around another cemetery on the outskirts of the city, Anatoly accidentally came across the grave of a girl named Tatiana, who died at just 6 years old. Tatiana was an active girl, always laughing and loving outdoor games. But her life was cut short by a sudden accident. Drawn by Tatiana's story, Anatoly decided that she would be his next victim. Anatoly carried out his familiar process, digging up the grave, opening the coffin, and bringing Tatiana's body to his apartment. He carefully dressed her in new clothes, applied makeup to her face, and posed her like a lifelike doll. Tatiana, now part of the collection, was placed next to Maria and Elena. Anatoly's life with the 3 corpse dolls became even stranger. He continued to maintain a normal life outside, with work and social relationships. But every time he returned to his apartment, he immersed himself in his own world, chatting and interacting with the dolls as if they were real children. Anatoly held imaginary tea parties, telling the dolls about historical stories and his dreams. He regarded them as close friends, the children he never had. Anatoly's loneliness and obsession with death were clearly reflected in how he cared for and interacted with the dolls. Tatiana, the 3rd victim, made Anatoly's apartment even more gloomy and frightening. But for Anatoly, it was a bizarre comfort, a way to feel less lonely in his world. The dolls made from corpses were not only the product of madness, but also a testament to the extreme loneliness and obsession with death that Anatoly could not escape. The story of Anatoly Moskvin's life and his victims continued to become more horrifying and complex. Loneliness, madness, and dark obsession turned him into a terrifying criminal, creating unforgettable, haunting stories. Anatoly Moskvin's bizarre life continued as he couldn't stop his obsession with death and the dolls made from corpses. After having 3 friends in his collection, Anatoly began searching for a 4th victim. But this time, the 4th victim was significantly different from the previous ones. Anatoly had wandered around many cemeteries and finally found the grave of a girl named Svetlana. Unlike the previous victims, Svetlana died at the age of 15, significantly older than the other victims. Svetlana was a beautiful, intelligent girl who always smiled, but her life was cut short by a severe illness. Anatoly felt a special connection with Svetlana. He decided to carry out a more complex ritual to turn her body into a doll. He researched and applied more complex embalming methods, using techniques he had long studied. He wanted Svetlana to be the most perfect doll in his collection. One night, Anatoly again quietly entered the cemetery, dug up Svetlana's grave, and brought her body back to his apartment. He began his work meticulously, more careful than ever. He dressed Svetlana in elegant clothes, applied makeup to her face, and even styled her hair. Svetlana was placed in a special chair, as if she was sitting in the living room, ready to chat with Anatoly. The difference with Svetlana was not only in her age, but also in how Anatoly treated her. He felt that Svetlana was a special friend, someone he could share more with than the previous victims. He spent a lot of time next to Svetlana, telling her about his dreams, stories, and even the deep sorrows in his heart. However, this difference also brought Anatoly more worries and tension. He knew that embalming and preserving Svetlana's body required more skills and effort. He was always worried that this horrifying truth would be discovered, and he would lose all the friends he had created. The fourth victim, Svetlana, made Anatoly Moskvin's story more complex and profound. She was not just a doll made from a corpse, but also a symbol of the loneliness, obsession, and madness in Anatoly's mind. His dolls made from corpses were not only the product of madness, but also a testament to the pain and ultimate loneliness that Anatoly had to face. After adding Svetlana to his collection, Anatoly Moskvin couldn't stop. Each new corpse he brought to his apartment enriched his collection and made it more terrifying. Anatoly's loneliness and obsession with death deepened, prompting him to continue searching for new victims. Here is the story of some of the next victims in his horrifying collection. Fifth victim. Olga, 9 years old, was an introverted girl, fond of reading books and dreaming about fairy tales. Olga's life was cut short by a tragic traffic accident. Anatoly found her grave in a small cemetery on the outskirts of the city. He brought Olga's body home, dressed her in beautiful dresses, and decorated her with cute bows. For Anatoly, Olga symbolized innocence and shattered childhood dreams. Sixth victim, Yulia. Yulia, 12 years old, died of a severe illness. She had long black hair and sad eyes. Anatoly found Yulia's grave on a rainy afternoon and decided to bring her to his apartment. He cared for Yulia's body as a mother would care for her daughter, applying makeup to her and often chatting with her. Yulia became an important part of Anatoly's collection, someone he felt he could share his deepest sorrows with. Seventh victim, Katya, 8 years old, was an active girl, fond of sports and playing with friends. Katya's life was ended by a rare disease. Anatoly found Katya's grave in an ancient cemetery and decided to bring her body home. He turned Katya into a doll with sportswear, as if she was still lively and full of energy. Katya represented the joy and life that Anatoly had never experienced in his real life. Eighth victim, Polina. Polina, 11 years old, was an intelligent girl who loved to learn and always achieved high academic results. She died of a severe illness, leaving her family in unbearable pain. Anatoly found Polina's grave and felt a special connection with her. He brought Polina's body home, dressed her in school clothes, and often sat with her to study and share knowledge. Polina became a symbol of the dreams and knowledge that Anatoly pursued. Ninth victim. Anya, 7 years old, loved music and dance. Anya's life was cut short by a regrettable accident. Anatoly brought Anya's body home and turned her into a beautiful doll with a dancer's costume. He often played music and danced with Anya in his apartment, imagining that she was still alive and performing. Anya became a symbol of the passion for art and liveliness that Anatoly craved. Anatoly Moskvin's subsequent victims were not just corpses, but also symbols of different aspects of life he had never experienced. Each doll made from a corpse carried a story. Anatoly Moskvin chose to bring the bodies to his apartment and turn them into dolls due to a number of complex and psychological reasons. One of the main reasons is the loneliness he felt. Moskvin didn't have many friends or social relationships, and creating friends from the bodies helped alleviate his feelings of loneliness. He viewed the dolls as close friends, even as family members. Furthermore, Moskvin had a strong obsession with death and rituals associated with death. Creating dolls from the bodies allowed him to directly engage with death and control it in his own way. Finally, Moskvin is also said to have a passion for history and culture. He spent a lot of time researching funeral rituals and methods of preserving bodies, and creating dolls from the bodies allowed him to apply his knowledge in a practical way. However, regardless of the reasons, Moskvin's actions were inhumane and violated the privacy and respect for the deceased. Surely everyone has heard about him, and the stories related to him are no less strange. Please comment so our channel can release the next part about him. Today, I have a change in my reading voice. I hope you can give me your feedback.